So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Stewart. Actually, just one moment. I know we're in a webinar format here, so we don't have the chat function, but we do have Q&A, and we'll be watching that as we go. So please feel free, chime in the Q&A. We're happy to get questions answered. Cam, if you don't mind starting to record, and Eric, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to see so many familiar names just filling up the participant list here. And for all of you that helped in our research efforts up until this point, I just want to offer gratitude and thanks. We learned so much from you folks over the past several months about what a world-class system of CTE might look like here locally. And so we're piecing together all those parts and hoping to come back to you guys on a somewhat regular basis to provide you updates of where we are in that building process. And today's the first kind of foray into that. And again, just to reset for the folks that may not have been involved in those focus groups, what we're talking about here today is a world-class career and technical education programming, a set of programming here in Kalamazoo County. We released a report to the community last month in January that outlined kind of our learnings from a multi-phase labor market analysis that we're gonna get into a little bit here today. But first off, it's good to go back in time a little bit and just look at the journey up until this point. Really predating this timeline, we got together as kind of a KRESA leadership team and started dissecting data as it related to career and technical education. And what we found were some holes and some gaps, and frankly, some numbers that we weren't too proud of. First of all, our participation rate was too low. When you looked at us compared to neighboring districts, we knew that we were missing a lot of kids, and that a lot more kids could benefit. And when you really disaggregated the data even further, you found that we weren't serving all the different demographic groups at the rate we should be. And so we started asking the question of why is that? And pretty quickly we arrived on some information that related to a decentralized model that we've been using in EFE and how that might be contributing to some inequities in the way that services are delivered across the county for CTE. That's not to say that we don't believe strongly that EFE is providing an awesome service. It's just not hitting all the populations that we know it should hit. And what that equates to at the end of the day is you folks as employers out there are not getting the ready-made talent when they exit our services that you can benefit from. And so we really started launching into that phase one effort. Okay, what might a new system look like? And that was really a strong collaborative effort between all the different educators in Kalamazoo County. So we started playing with the idea of a redesign at that point, but in phase two, we really got our sea legs underneath us and started looking at what a centralized system of career and technical education might look like in our county. And we kind of identified that as the primary leg of a three-legged stool, if you will, that are our pillars for career and technical education under our redesign process. The other two being a comprehensive system of career awareness and exploration experiences and activities that starts as early as kindergarten. We know we can get to more kids in our traditional 10th, 11th, and 12th grade programs that CAM oversees if we start getting kids interested earlier. And so we're talking about a K-12 plus and maybe even pre-K with some of our early childhood programs that we're looking at. How do we stair step kids along so they have a better idea of what's available to them in our local labor market. And by the time they get into the 10th grade, they have a better idea of where they want to go. Not all kids will be dead set on one pathway. We know that kids are kids, but we also know we can give them a lot more opportunity to experience different careers with a more comprehensive approach. And the third kind of leg of that, and we'll show you a graphic here in just a moment, is work-based learning. And that's experiences with you folks, employers. Out on the job. We know we can only teach but so much here in the classroom, and a lot of learning happens on the job, and that's just an awesome way to experience different career options, to actually dip your toe into that career while you're still engaged in education. So after we did a lot of planning work around those three pillars, we kind of refined the design and landed on some language that we wanted to go out to the public and ask them if they would support through a millage, a comprehensive redesign of our system. We knew that that the millage, the ballot language we put on the millage and what's frankly allowable under law would only be able to would only allow us to capture a certain amount of money that could be used for operating career and tech ed programs. We knew that we'd really have to develop a robust public-private partnership to see kind of that centerpiece, that world-class career center within our community. And now I'm happy to report that public-private partnership is still going well. We're still where we need to be to see that to fruition. Don't have a ton more to say on that today. I know some of you, that's the question I get asked the most. Where's the career center going to be? When's it going to open? I don't have those details for you today, but I promise everyone when I do have that, you will get another invitation to a meeting just like this, hopefully in person, and we can divulge that information. But that doesn't mean the work hasn't started, okay? After November 5th, after Election Day, and the voters said, yes, we're in for this, we got right to work primarily with those career awareness and exploration experiences, focusing first on the middle school years, okay? We really wanted to make sure, what we know about kids is kids that become disengaged generally start becoming disengaged in those 6th or 8th grade years. Those are such critical years to capture kids' imagination about what their future might hold. So that's why we started with them. It's also potentially, if you look at a general timeline, the first group of kids that might actually be attending a brand new career center. And so we wanted to make sure we got them ready. We started getting them prepared for what could be. And that work's continuing to go. This fall, we're going to release our K-5 career awareness and exploration menu of services to all the local school districts, meaning every kid in Kalamazoo County will be able to be provided services through this. And we will launch our initial work-based learning pilots. And that'll be basically an expansion of our internships and a lot of great work around youth apprenticeships with you employers out there. So Sarah may be calling some of you and say, hey, what do you think about internships, apprenticeships here in the very near future? Next slide. So again, those are when we're talking about the 3 pillars, and we say 12 plus in that over in that far right column. I have to leave out the early middle college, and it's such an important resource for kids in our county that we hope more kids take advantage of, and that's that 13th grade that kids can get paid, for free to go to college and hopefully capture an associate's degree by the end of their 13th grade, in some awesome opportunities that align well with what employers say they need in our local labor market. So what are we really after here? What were the core features of our millage proposal? You'll see these here. I'm not going to read them to you, save the top 2, which are really the important pieces that we hope everybody walks away with. In addition to the 3 pillars, right? This redesign is very much rooted in equity. Again, as I said at the top, what we know from our data was that we weren't getting to the kids, to all the kids that we needed to with the decentralized model. It was nobody's fault. It was just the way the model was created. And if you ask a kid from KPS, which is our urban core district, to get on a bus and travel all the way out to Vicksburg in the middle of their academic school day for an hour and then come back, you're asking a lot. Not to mention the socioeconomic dynamics that may play into that, the racial dynamics that may play into asking a young person to travel to a school district where nobody looks like them, so on and so forth. And so you can see how a decentralized model can quickly contribute to issues related to equity. And so what we know is if we bring this under one roof and one kind of harmonious building that very much mirrors what a high school experience would be like, but reflecting a world of work, we just automatically up the equity quotient. There's a lot more to it. It's not that simple, but what we know is the centralized model lends itself much better to serving all kids. So then what are we really committed to in these 4 kind of chevrons here? You'll know a little bit more about how we're approaching our work. We're really committed to preparing young people for well-paying, high-demand jobs in our local labor market that require less than a 4-year degree. Does that mean we dissuade kids from going to college? No, that does not. That is not. It's not an either-or. It doesn't have to be like that. A lot of times people talk about it in black and white like that. What we want to make sure is every kid that exits our services has a path, and a path where they can have an economically viable, family-sustaining career when they leave our services. We're going to get into that information a lot more when Sarah presents some of the data. We want to make sure that we're aligned with industry trends. We've done a ton of research on the top performing nations in the world of CTE, your Singapores, your Switzerland, these places that are really knocking it out of the park. And they all have one common theme, and that's they center the voice of employers in the work. It's not just a bunch of educators and back in a dark room drawing up curriculum about what they think the work would look like. It's actually hearing from the employers. We've been we very much appreciated your voice in the focus groups. We're going to keep engaging those voices throughout the curriculum design process and beyond. Again, equity and inclusion is a big part of what we're committed to. And then this final chevron here is very important as well. We're committed to helping students gain skills and competencies required to navigate an ever-changing employment landscape. Boy, does the world of work look a lot different today than it did from when I was in high school 20 some years ago. That's going to continue, and as you employers know, at an even more rapid pace with things like automation. What's happening with COVID-19? The world of work is shifting underneath us as we sit here today. And so it's incumbent upon us to two things. One, we're teaching a set of 21st century skills, that feature things like adaptability, flexibility, creativity, all these different things that help kids navigate these ever-changing jobs, right? And this also requires us to keep our ear to the ground, keep in close connection with the employers out there to make sure that what we're providing in terms of education is current, because things get outdated at a pretty quick pace. Next slide. So how have we arrived at our original information to start the process of making program selections? You'll see it here in a 4-part kind of robust labor market analysis that we conducted with some of our partners. First, we took a look at the national labor landscape. What's going on in the world of work in general across the USA, and how does it compare to our local labor market? Our friends at the University of Michigan with their youth policy lab over there helped us kind of navigate some of that information. You're going to see some cool information as it relates to that here shortly. We then took a deeper dive into our local labor market with our friends at the Upjohn Institute, and we started identifying, okay, what are these high growth areas, right? High demand areas. And what are these well-paying positions? Well-paying is a sensitive topic. Sarah's going to address it in a little bit. I gave her the hard slide. I don't want to touch it. So Sarah's the master of that one. I'm kidding. Employer surveys. We reached out to all of you and we asked you a list of questions. Okay, this is what the data is telling us. What does it look like in your shop? How does it feel in your world? And we took it even one step further, and we got some of you folks together in focus groups to really have deeper level conversations about that work. And so what did we find? I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Mansberger, and she's going to give you some detail.
Thank you, Eric. I'm excited to share with you some of our, as I said, kind of high-level findings. For those who participated in focus groups, you'll know those were 2 hours each. We conducted 11 different focus groups across industry and a significant employer survey in addition to the research that we received from the University of Michigan and the Upjohn Institute for Employment Research. So we have a lot of data. We're going to share with you some selections of those data. And really, we're using the data to help us answer 4 questions. The first, as Eric mentioned, right, how can we start to get our arms around the industry composition within our region and what that means for CTE courses that integrate well into those areas of opportunity in the industries that are significant for us? What are some of the trends in industry that we should be aware of changing the future, reshaping the future of work? Things like automation, digitization that are transforming occupational areas and whole career fields. The question of pay that Eric mentioned. And really, we see these as a series of filters for decision making that ultimately, and this last question will allow us to say, based on what's happening in industry, here regionally, and taking into consideration some of these questions of growth and earning potential, what are the CTE courses that then align to our objectives of offering students courses that align to in-demand, well-paying industries and positions within our local economy? So we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of answers to each of these questions, knowing we've got a lot more data behind this work as well. I'm going to start with the first one from an industry perspective. When we take a look at the composition of our local labor market, we know we're going to have our eyes on these clusters of industries. This graphic comes from some of the work that the University of Michigan put together for us, and really it's comparing the Kalamazoo Portage MSA, that's our metropolitan statistical area that essentially maps to Kalamazoo County. So looking at county level data compared to the state in green and US trends in yellow. And what you'll see here for folks who are employed, about half are working in one of these industry clusters: trade, transportation, and utilities, education and health services, and manufacturing. Sometimes as we've shared these data, we get the question, how come education and health get lumped together? This is just thanks to using multiple different sources of data. This happens to come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this is their grouping of education and health services together. So you'll see the way industries are represented throughout our presentation change a little bit, and that's just because of how the data are organized at that source level. The key takeaway here being that we know that in order to be able to offer opportunities for our students that are meaningful within our regional economy, we need to be smart about the types of offerings that align to these industries, because they are so significant to the shape of our regional economy. So there's one filter for decision making, and along the question of industry alignment. When we think about some of the trends that are shaping the world of work here locally, we want to understand also where, not only in terms of volume of employment, but where are some of those growth areas that we're anticipating here within Southwest Michigan and within Kalamazoo County specifically. Health and social assistance represents the single largest anticipated area of growth within our region. We also see opportunity areas within construction and educational services. That's not to say we don't see opportunity elsewhere, but these are three clusters that represent the most significant areas of growth. And so we want to be smart about how we're, again, aligning our CTE course offerings to not only what exists today, but what we anticipate in some of these growth industries going forward. We all know, COVID-19 is having its impact on the world of work, and automation as well. I know some of you on the call are very close to this, and sometimes I think it's, we like to do our part to help think about automation in this way, right? Sometimes the story gets told that it represents a, kind of falling off a cliff of work, right? And we certainly know that's true, that there will be job functions that go away entirely as a result of automation. But what we get curious about is how automation actually changes and creates different opportunities in the world of work, right? If we're introducing new technologies, for example, into what we're doing in our workplaces, who designs, builds, maintains those technologies within our workplaces. Perhaps Cam will be able to reflect on some of his current thinking about what that means in seeing some of these technologies in operation in industry. So a couple of the trends that we're watching here in terms of growth areas and the impact of automation and technology. We thank you for the insights you've already shared, and we'll continue to make sure that we're really aligning with intention to what's happening in industry. The sensitive question of pay. So we really want to make sure, as Eric said, that we're aligning students into opportunities, not only individual occupations, but really thinking more expansively about career pathways within our region. And how do we help support somebody's success and the likelihood that they can, enter a job in an occupational field that supports family sustaining wages. And so how do we start to think about a threshold, right? Again, this is one filter for decision making. But when we think about a threshold and what counts as well-paying, we want to make sure that we're looking at those areas of opportunity that are at the median, above the median wage, right? And that represent a living wage for a single wage earner. We know that the earning demands of somebody who is a single wage earner with no dependents are very different than a single wage earner with multiple dependents, for example. So we don't pretend to know what somebody's future might be, but we want to be mindful that we're setting students up for, again, occupations and career pathways that give them opportunities to grow and sustain themselves financially. When we start to put these variables together, I really like this graphic because it allows you to see how you start to make considerations with these things all in one place. So at the bottom of this graphic, you're looking at the number of, essentially a measure of growth, right? Or growth potentially, or just the need in our labor market right now, right? The average annual openings within our different industry clusters, plotted against wage. And so where we get excited is where we see that sweet spot, right? Where there's a significant number of openings that tells us there's a need in the marketplace for us to potentially come in as a training provider. And again, aligning to those healthy wages for our learners and our students. So I want to draw attention, for example, to architecture and construction, that light blue bubble toward the center of the chart. It's the biggest one there. What you're seeing here, the sizes of the bubble reflect the number of positions, of jobs that are aligned specifically to CTE. So there are, umpteen numbers of jobs within architecture and construction. This is representing essentially how much opportunity is there within that industry cluster for people leaving a CTE program. So it's a subset of occupations within each of these industries. It's a sweet spot for us because there's a nice number of openings. It's at decent levels of pay, and it's a big bubble, meaning there's a lot of different opportunities for students. So this is just one way that we're taking a look at these data, but you start to get a sense of how you can see these variables together and really start to consider opportunity areas in each of these industry clusters that are so important in our region. Like I said, we had 11 different focus groups, an employer survey, and some very robust labor market analysis from both of our research partners. So this is just the beginning and really a high level overview of some of those findings. I'm going to turn it over to Cam, who's going to talk about especially the intersection of what we learned between our survey and our focus groups in the form of educational outcomes in our CTE.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I wanted to talk about, Eric mentioned some of our research and best practices from around the globe. And he mentioned, the one thing that they have in common is that the employer's voice is centered at, in these decisions. So these next few areas I'm going to talk about are overlaps between what our best practice research has shown us and also the outcomes from the employer survey and the focus groups, and where we see that employer voice being centered as we move forward in the design of these CTE programs. The first being here, the combination of integrating applied learning and academics with hard skills and technical skills. We heard from you, we know that the core areas of math and literacy are extremely important, in addition to those hard and technical skills that are very specific to your industry. We are situated uniquely to be able to answer that question from students when they ask, when will I ever use this? So, we have a unique opportunity to center your voice in that process of curriculum design when we're talking about those core areas of math and literacy in combination being taught through the technical skills of these CTE programs, to say, glad you asked. I talked to so-and-so last week and, we've toured here and this is where they use this math and this is why this is important. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that first part about, building the competitive advantage for students of combining these academics and technical skills together. The next piece that I wanted to talk about was our 21st century skills. And, we know that this is an ever-changing employment landscape. Sarah talked briefly about the automation and how this is changing. And we know that the technical skills in combination with those academic skills get a student's foot in the door. But really for that career and lifelong success, these 21st century skills are going to be very, very critical, mission critical. In the survey, on the next slide, we had asked you, given a list of, here's 11 different 21st century skills. From this list, what are the top 5 that are most valuable to you in your current employment landscape? We had overwhelming response in agreement that these top 5 were the ones that were selected as being the most critical right now: self-management, communication, problem solving, critical thinking, and collaboration. And I just wanted to touch on briefly, I had an opportunity last week to tour through a Zoetis that has quite a bit of automation going on some of their lines. They're actually in a 3-week shutdown right now, redoing some of those lines. But Sarah talked about automation, and that tour was just so impactful for me because I was able to walk through with their maintenance department and look at this line where, yeah, the first person on the line may have been replaced, but to see the little PLC controllers, to see the maintenance, the bearings, the things that wear out, the things that need to be replaced, the sensors, the controls, I thought, oh, okay, so this is what we talk about with a new level of work. And then it just stuck with me about these 21st century skills and a growth mindset as you take into this new environment. So, in addition to identifying these top 5, the follow-up question we asked was how critical is it that we offer a rigorous curriculum in these 21st century skills? 7 out of 10 employers said somewhat or very critical. So another place where we will be looking for your voice to be centered will be in the curriculum development around these 21st century skills to make sure that students are learning them, are getting feedback, and so when they get to you, you can see that they've been through this process. The last one I wanted to touch on is credentials and certifications. I see a lot of familiar names on the line that have been with us through our EFE programs and have had this conversation with us about students leaving these high school CTE programs with credentials and certifications. We know many times they may leave with a certification and they'll get to you and the certification may be a national level one that really doesn't mean anything to you. And we want to make sure that your voice is central to that so that we are offering certifications and credentials that are meaningful in our local labor market. The picture down there, the 127, if you haven't heard us talk about that before, that's the ratio of jobs in our economy. So for every one job that requires a master's degree or more, there are 2 that require a bachelor's degree and 7 that require that professional skilled trades 1-year certificate or 2-year degree. And obviously our work is centered around that 7 ratio and those credentials and certifications that would be a part of that 1-year certificate, 2-year degree. And now I will pass it back to Eric.
So there you have it, right? Some early learnings on the data that we've been able to gather. Trust me when I say there are reams and reams of charts and tables and all that. If you're somebody who likes to dig deep into the numbers, just give us a holler. We'd be happy to send you over a truck full of paper. But no, seriously, there's a lot there to dissect. And it's going to really inform our decisions as we move forward in terms of what programs we select. Sarah mentioned the filtering process that comes next. And that's not done in isolation here at KRESA. That's done as every step of the process has been conducted with the community. And so there will be a steering committee formed. Several of you will probably be asked to serve on it. And we're gonna walk in deeper to the waters of that data and talk about what does that mean for us in terms of how we prepare kids and really get some idea of what those programs are. So then we can make some informed decisions about things like facilities, which I know again is the big question, right? Just to once again, touch on that conversation really happens in partnership with some collaborators in the community that have been important to this work. Again, what we know about our millage is that we're able to, law limits us to 1 mill, which generates here in Kalamazoo County between $8.1 and $8.5 million annual, which is enough to operate, all of our programming. It's not enough to build an awesome state-of-the-art facility. Any of you folks out there in facility design or any of that, you would know that, right? It's a great chunk of money and it's an awesome commitment from the community, but we're probably going to have to find alternative sources to make the big dreams come true, right? And so we're doing that work with our friends at Southwest Michigan First and numerous other business partners. that I see on the line here, and we're right where we feel like we need to be as it relates to that. And things progress. Things will progress. I'd be lying if I said COVID hasn't kind of altered or slowed paths a little bit, but such is life in 2020 and beyond. So, so with that, I just once again would really like to acknowledge our partners at the Upjohn Institute and University of Michigan, and thank them for the work that they do, and just give them the highest of recommendations for any of you folks out there looking for data partners. Happy to take any questions that anybody has. We have some time here, and we're educators, so we're good at sitting here waiting for folks to ask questions. Anybody at all? Q&A, chat? If not, we're just going to assume that we did a perfect job here and everybody's super pleased. Oh, we got one. Cam, you want to, or Sarah?
Sure. Yeah. Pete from WMU just asked, what is our greatest need at this time from employers?
I'm so glad that somebody asked that. I should have led harder with that. And Sarah might have a few things to say about this as well. Engagement at numerous levels. This again starts pre-kindergarten for us, right? We have a continuum of services that range all the way up through the ranks. And what we know is that earlier we can grab kids' imagination, grab kids' interest about what they can be, and help them see what they can be through our relationships with our employer partners, the more likely it is they will succeed in a career pathway that ultimately benefits you and them simultaneously. Sarah, did you have any specifics you would like to add on that?
Sure, I'll chime in. I appreciate the question very much. I think in terms of our research effort, we look forward to, as Eric shared, next steps and where this research goes in terms of course selection. But we are very active right now in the career awareness and exploration work. We are gearing up for My Career Quest, which is coming up in May. That event will be held May 12th, and it's going to be done virtually this year. I know we've had folks who are on the line now who've been there in person. You know what the energy is like in that room. For those, this is a new event. It's all 8th graders in Kalamazoo and Calhoun County. And we're taking it virtual this year. We have a really, really cool platform that has a virtual conference type feel. And so we're working with employer partners on that event. If that is of interest to you and you have never participated, we'd be happy to get you integrated. I can make sure my email address you should all have since you were invited to this, but please feel free to reach out. We'd be thrilled to have you engaged. We have additional career awareness and exploration activities as well, kind of within individual districts. And I've been reaching out for folks who are willing to serve as mentors and speakers. And so we just appreciate that if and when you get one of those points of outreach, if you are not able to do it personally, just helping us to expand our network of speakers and mentors available to young people. And last but not least, I'll put in a plug for apprenticeships. I think we're going to be seeing some exciting movement on that work soon. And so we'll look forward to your partnership to build out meaningful experiences for students that are also valuable to you. And I see there's lots of good questions filtering in. That was a good filibuster here for our Q&A time. Let's see what we've got.
Combination question about timeline for outlook for the facility to be built in terms of timeline, and then possibly money in addition that would be needed in addition to the millage.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to frustrate some folks on the line and not give very many specifics on that. What we know is it's going to take some, significant contributions from the philanthropic community, the business community. But I would also say, KRESA, we're positioning ourselves. We're saving a significant amount of money off the millage that we're collecting right now to contribute ultimately to that facility. And so it'll be a multi kind of partner process for that. But once again, I just want to, I would think, and, I'm not going to give you a firm timeline, but the summer-ish time, we hope to be, setting up some more announcements Obviously, don't hold me to that super firmly, because the world is changing and we live in a pandemic, which is really just shifting a lot of things. But I promise when we're able to say something more firmly, we will definitely get back to this group.
And Sarah, we can send this out, this presentation out afterwards. So if you were on this email list, we can send it back out. There was a couple of questions about that.
Yep, and I see, Andy, your question about hosting an apprenticeship now, and oops, it's jumping. How will be sharing feedback regarding their experience? I'd be happy to chat with you so we can make sure we're in good communication, and that's, you know, a positive experience on both sides. So I'll reach out to you directly on that. Lisa is asking for survey and construction field technicians, please. Duly noted. Thank you for your comment, Lisa. I'm sorry, the questions are jumping a little bit. How are we doing with the culture shift mindset of CTE with parents, students, guidance counselors? I can start with that, and I'm sure Cam and Eric have lots to chime in. Pete, it's such a critical question. We know that there's a cultural shift that has to change. We have been sharing this data set in this presentation widely, including with counselors, and have been talking about the fact that we don't want, either imagination or stigma to be a limiting factor for students, and certainly stigma around types of work. We know we have work to do there. I would say we're at, still early stages of that journey. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but especially with our career awareness and exploration activities, we're working hard to make sure that students are seeing a diverse array of folks in the world of work in terms of the levels of education, job function, how they define success, not to mention, identity and personal background. So we are really starting that work with the career awareness and exploration activities that are happening at the middle school level, and look forward to growing that, stretching that into the high school programming and down into those earlier grades. Eric, Cam, please feel free to jump in on that one.
I know Cam has a lot on that one too. I would just say, you identify guidance counselors as part of the question, and that is so apt. That's such an important group that often sits in the kind of gatekeeping position in terms of course selection and kind of the focus on college of a career and all that goes into that. I would say they're cheerleaders of this work. That's been the experience that we've had thus far. And I'll also say we can't do it in isolation as an educational system, right? The community needs to come along on that journey with us. And I'm so excited about a lot of the efforts that you see out there that are really focusing attention on career and technical education fields. Think about the Kalamazoo Promise. I mean, it started as a promise for a college education. It's still that. But they have specific programming that is dedicated to those more shorter term trainings, that 7 and that 127 program. They've come along on this journey as well, and just critical partners. And so we do this in an ecosystem that has many different aspects attached to it. And I'm excited about how it's going so far. Cam, do you have other thoughts on that?
Yeah, the counselors have been along with us from day one about this learning together of the 127 and the jobs in our economy and wages. So they have been learning alongside of us for the past couple years. I think we're in a very good spot with the education around the programs. Obviously, there's always more work to do, but we do have great support from counselors. And I think more now than ever too, even from principal and superintendent level support is overwhelming right now.
Thanks for mentioning that. Absolutely.
Question from Eric. Haven't heard much about CTE focus within the restaurant and hospitality industry. Is that being considered moving forward?
Absolutely. We currently have a culinary program that we feel pretty strongly about, and we hope we can continue to do that work in partnership with a lot of different community partners as it relates to the restaurant industry. Absolutely. I see location question. It's a good question. As far as the location for the new building, if an hour commute is a current burden for some students, will the new location be closer for all students? Speaking more about bus riders. Absolutely, right? That's part of the problem of a decentralized model. there's classes all over the county and at the far expanses of the county in a lot of circumstances, which makes the bus riding just a barrier, frankly. And so what we've committed ourselves to is a centralized career center. When I say centralized, I mean one location, or there'll be occasional satellites. We're not gonna replicate our aviation program that's located at the Air Zoo within a career center. It's gonna be pretty hard to beat the Air Zoo, and there's other things like that. But when I say centralized, I also mean center of the county. And you can kind of draw a circle around center of the county, right? You're thinking of that Sprinkle Road to Portage Road, I-94 kind of area. That's really centralized to the county, so kids can get to it quicker, more efficiently.
Pete, we appreciate your kind words here. I hope you hear the excitement in our voices. Just looking at the list of names of who's represented here, Eric opened with thanks, and we really want to continue to express it. It has been just absolutely thrilling in a world that's been slowed down in so many ways and altered in the education space so many ways, to see the career awareness and exploration work happening and happening successfully across 9 different school districts in the county. And that's in no small part to the employer and community partners who support the work and who supported our research efforts. We're so grateful to you for sharing so generously your thoughts, your expertise, your willingness to get involved. We're just so grateful. And we know this is the beginning of not just our journey, but truly a community journey. So thank you so much for everything you've already done and will continue to do to really see this be what it can be for the community. We're happy to take any other questions. We won't fill an hour just to do it, but we do have some more time if anyone else has questions to pose here. We might be at going once,
Yep.
Going twice. All right, I think we'll call it good. We will happily share a recording of the presentation. Please feel free. There's another session tomorrow morning too, if there's anyone else who you think might want to come and ask a question live. And of course, we are happy to take a phone call, an email, whatever it may be. Eric, I'm going to let you close us out.
I just offer once again, my thanks and our continued commitment to work alongside all of you in this super important work. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We want to do this together. We know we're better together as a community. It's been proven time and time again, and we want to do it alongside all of you. Thanks so much for your time, and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.